Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm starting a bit early. My name is David Hall, and I'm here to give you a bit of information about some forthcoming talks in this building. As an audience interested in the history of Bath, you're almost certainly aware of the Mayor of Bath Guides. Among other things, they do special walks, some of which this year have actually been about the Blitz. I don't know if any of you have been on them. There are 4 more coming up. And the Mayor of Bath's Guides are 90 years old this year. And on Wednesday, 2 nights from now, we have an evening talk about them and their history. So that's coming up. Then next week, we have another talk that may interest military history buffs. Here at Brilsey, we're 200 years old, so we're quite keen on things that happened in 1824, one of which was the founding of the Oriental Club in London by Major General Sir John Malcolm and other ex-army officers and East India Company nabobs. Their first president was the Duke of Wellington, who many of you will know did quite well in India before he came over to the peninsula. So we've got a talk about 200 years of the Oriental Club on next Tuesday at the 16th of July. And then at the end of the month, another talk which will actually feature the Blitz. So spoiler alert, the Luftwaffe flattened the assembly rooms. Now, it wasn't the only thing that happened to the building, but it was probably their worst bad luck. And the wrangling over whether to rebuild it or not might quite surprise you. The whole 250-year history of the assembly rooms is going to be covered on Tuesday, the 30th of July, and the speaker will be Dr. Tim Moore from the National Trust. So that's enough from me. Let me hand over to Peter Lamont, who's in charge of tonight's proceedings. Thank you.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Bath Royal Literacy and Scientific Institute. My name is Peter Lamont and I'm one of the conveners for the Military History Programme, of which tonight's event is part. So before we go to tonight's speakers, a bit of housekeeping, as you probably all been through this again. In the event of a fire or the alarm sounding, if you go back at the way you came in, down the stairs, turn right at the building, turn right again at the end, and meet by the Roman temple ornament, and then we'll hopefully sort it all out from there. For those of you joining online for the live stream, could I please ask that you keep yourself muted during the talk. You're welcome to post questions in the chat function, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible at the end, when there'll also be the opportunity to ask questions here in the room. Tonight's talk is the second in a 3-part series about Bath's experience of the Second World War. Last week, we had an excellent talk by Stuart Burrows from the Museum of Bath at Work on how the city's industries contributed to the war effort. The third talk is next Monday, when David Verghese will look at the role of the Admiralty in the city. They arrived in 1939 and stayed for many years. Tonight, however, we have a subject that impacted the city more directly and more profoundly than any other event in the war. In 1942, Bath suffered huge damage and many deaths and injuries during 3 consecutive nights of air raids. Tonight's speaker lost several members of his family in the bombing and has since carried out extensive research on the subject, examining why the raids were ordered, how they happened, the damage they did, and the aftermath and repercussions of it all. He's a lifelong resident of Bath, and he has represented the city as an ambassador. Please join me in welcoming Chris Kilminster.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm grateful for you all coming to hear this, what happened to Bath in 1942. Bath was an undefended city. It was destroyed as a reprisal. What happened was the Royal Air Force on March the 28th and 9th bombed Lubeck on the Baltic coast. They destroyed the city completely. That was the aftermath of Lubeck. The Royal Air Force at the time were trying a new type of incendiary. And Lubeck was mostly made of wooden buildings, and they burnt very, very well. The Royal Air Force at the time flew some 230 sorties over Lubeck. After they finished bombing Lubeck, they concentrated on the U-boat pens, which were situated again on the Baltic coast. This outraged Hitler. He decided that he would take reprisal on any city or town in Britain with more than 3 stars in their tourist guide. The cities included, obviously, the Pearl was Bath, York, Canterbury, Exeter. They were all called the Baedeker Raids. The Baedeker Raids were designed as almost terrorist attacks, because Bath at the time had no particular industry, even though the Luftwaffe knew of Stollerton pits. They knew of the factories in Bath, but they were interested in that. They were after civilians. During the 3 raids, what happened was, several days prior to the raid on Bath, an aircraft was seen at very high altitude. They didn't know what it was doing. It was flying over the city several times. It was taking aerial photographs of the city. And there is this, if I get on there, just down there, that is the hutments at Fox Hill. That was one of the prime targets that the Luftwaffe were after. And when they put their radio beam across the channel, the radio beam actually passed over Fox Hill hutments in Combe Down. Up higher, you've got the Royal Crescent. There's a wreck. This is Ophel Park. That area there's Ophel Park. So what happened then? They decided then that they were going to bomb Bath. As I say, it was about 3 days prior, maybe even 4 days prior. The reconnaissance plane that flew over Bath, it was at very high altitude, so they didn't know it was taking pictures. And that is consequently the pictures. The other map on the other side is ones that they obtained from, believe it or not, Bath City Council. About 1938, when Hitler was contemplating war, they sent a message to Bath City Council and saying, your beautiful historic city is a very, very attractive tourist place. Could you possibly furnish us with a detailed map of all the streets and all the interesting parts? Bath City Council did that. They sent these sort of pictures on the right-hand side. Then we move on to the next picture. Again, Bath City Council on there. This picture is interesting because that part there is Cullen Airfield, up in near Box, Cullen. It's been mapped out as a target. That one there is Charmy Down. Now, Charmy Down was a satellite station. It wasn't actually particularly active. It was used for training new Polish fighter pilots. And based there was Hurricanes and Spitfires. Got to go back now. Where are we? Go back. Yeah. Up there, that was a Mosquito base at the time of the war. So they knew that was there. They knew a lot of information about Bath. Where did they get all the information from? Not Bath City Council. What they did, as the story goes, I'm not going to use the word spy because it's more. I'm going to use the word informant. There was a German informant living in the Bath area. He was feeding Germany with information about the city of Bath. He lived in or around Marlborough Buildings up near the Royal Crescent. So he was feeding all this information. I've studied the war, the Bath Blitz now for 55 years. I got so much information, it's unbelievable. A good example of what happened then, you can find that. This gives you some idea of the tonnage that was dropped on Bath. You can see Bath, the line on Bath there. Total sorties were 234, a sortie being one flight to the target. The total tonnage of bombs dropped on Bath was given as 324 tons. An average bomb that was dropped on Bath, there were several bombs dropped on Bath, different sizes. The average one would be 250 kilograms. They did drop 500 kilograms, which was a very common bomb to drop. And they dropped 1,000 kilograms. And they decided to drop two huge 1,800 kilogram bombs. Because when they flew over Bath on their photographic mission, they pointed out two places that they were interested in bombing. On the London Road, near where Snow Hill Flats are now, and also the City of Bath Boys' School off Entry Hill. So two bombs were designated to destroy that because they thought the place in London Road by Snow Hill was a factory because it's all glass. And they had an idea that City of Bath Boys' School was of a military interest. So going to these two bombs, they dropped these two bombs on target. One hit the area in Snow Hill where Snow Flats are now, but it wasn't a factory. It was a massive, great greenhouse. So it wasn't a factory. They dropped the next bomb on City of Bath Boys' School up at the Bear Flat. They missed the actual building, and the bomb landed, which is now the play area. It made a massive, great crater. As I say, they also dropped 11 tons of these 1 kilogram incendiaries. Now, 11 tons is about 11,176 of these. That is a 1 kilogram incendiary. This is approximate. We can't say exactly that was the amount, but how they could tell where the incendiary bomb dropped. The bomb would burn because it contained magnesium, but it would leave this part behind. And anybody who knows Van Diemen Road in Lansdowne, there was a field up there where nearly 700 dropped in the field. And they would drop these in big baskets of 250 at a time. Now, when they came to bomb Bath, they used three types of aircraft: the Dornier, the J-88s, and the Henkel 111s. The pilots who took off to bomb Bath were quite amateurs. They hadn't done a lot of missions at all. They were quite rookies, so to speak. They were very brave rookies, because at the end of the Blitz in Bath, 12 of them never went back. 12 planes were shot down. Now, they were never, ever towed to the target until about 20 minutes prior to takeoff. I befriended a Luftwaffe pilot called Willy Schludecker, and he came across in 2009 and made a public apology to Bath for his part in destroying the city. What would happen is they took off from a place called Everick, which is about 10 miles inland from Cherbourg. Flying time to Bath, loaded, was 38 minutes. The distance being roughly from Cherbourg to Bath, about, as the crow flies, 174 miles. They never flew as a group. They were all individual. So every single pilot and every single crew were on their own. They had no communication whatsoever with any other plane. They had no communication whatsoever with the base in occupied France. They were flying on their own. So every crew was on their own. They were going to survive or they weren't going to survive. The average life expectancy of a Luftwaffe bomber crew was 7 missions. We'll go on later on to talk about Willy Schludecker. But what happened then is they came across on the Saturday night. And they always sent over, usually, 2 Pathfinders. Now, a Pathfinder is a plane which actually marked the target. And they always flew from the same direction when they bombed Bath. They came over Sham Castle on the east, and they flew down into the basin. They dropped their bombs. They were told initially to look for churches, because if they bombed churches, it would destroy the morale. And I can safely say that virtually every single church in Bath was hit in some way. Even the Abbey lost several of its windows in the east wing through a blast which a bomb dropped in the recreation ground. So they came over to Bath, and the reason why I know so much about this is because I questioned this German Luftwaffe pilot in great detail. Move to the next slide. That is my sister Mary. Mary was age 7. She lived in Rosebery Road in Twerton. Mary, along with most of my family, were killed in a direct hit on a surface air raid shelter in Rosebery Road. The shelter in Rosebery Road contained 31 residents and people seeking shelter. Of the 31, 28 were killed. There were very few survivors. Mary was killed. The rest of the family was killed. Then what happened then is my mum was injured badly with shrapnel, and she had to have her right leg amputated. And when the raid was going on, and they took my mum to an American field hospital in Farrington, Gurney, where they amputated her right leg. Mary was blown out the shelter completely. Shirley was one of the only survivors. She didn't have a scratch on her. And she was heard wandering around the rubble calling mummy, mummy. Now, Shirley suffered immense shock. She was just over 4. And she's obviously passed away now. And there was one other survivor in the shelter, and I can't find out who that survivor was. I've tried every way to find out. Well, I don't know whether a male or a female or what. Well, that is Mary there. This is Rosebery Road. The circle there is where the shelter was. There. That house there is still there. All the other ones are gone. This chap here, we don't know what he's doing. He's wandering around. Stephen Bird got a good idea that he could have possibly been an artist or a photographer for the war effort. We don't know. I discovered, looking very, very closely, if you look there, There's some people there rummaging around. Now, that part of the city, Rosebery Road, suffered very, very bad looting. So it was cordoned off for 4 days after the final raid. And the reason why it was cordoned off is because of looting and also to remove body parts. The majority of people who lost their lives in Bath were taken to 3 mortuaries. One mortuary was the old ice factory in Walcott Street. It's gone now, obviously. I think it turned out to be a school in the end. Another one was St. James's Church in Stall Street. And one that's still there now, and anybody who goes past it there, remember when they look at this, if you cross the Churchill Bridge with intention of going to up the Bear Flat, as you go under the arch to join the Wells Road, on the very corner as you go under the arch, before you go under the arch, if you look to the right, you'll see a building with big, thick wooden doors. That was used as a mortuary during the Blitz. And I only found this out about 2 weeks ago. Another small mortuary was used. It was Millmead Garage in Millmead Road for the people in Oakfield Park who were killed, because they intended to destroy civilians. So that is Rosebery Road. There's a shelter there. That's how thick the shelter walls were. The shelter walls, the roof was reinforced with wire. It was some 14 inches thick. The walls of the shelter were about 10 inches thick. And that received a direct hit from a 500 kilogram bomb. And part of the bomb is on the table there. That part of that bomb there is what did that damage. And that particular part there was dug up around there when they redeveloped them. This area is very, very special to me. It was up for redevelopment, and I found this out, and I went down there and I introduced myself to the people who were going to do the redevelopment. And I was there from the very, very first day they put the shovel in. And I stayed there every single day until that place was actually finished 3 years later. And I obtained great confidence. They trusted me. They trusted me so much that as they found things, they would give them to me. Hence, I've got the bomb part. I furnished all the workmen with more donuts than you could ever believe. I was feeding them donuts continuously. The company was called Baedeker Raids. We got on very, very well. And they knew the story of Mary, and they knew the story of the shelter. And in conversation, the actual land now is owned by Legal in General. And in the conversation, I said to my wife, Pat, who supported me all the way through. Pat's heard this story so many times. She's actually watching now, so sorry, Pat. I said to them, I said, could we have a little bit of land which we could have as a memorial garden? They said, yes. So they allowed me a little bit of land down by the river. It's still there now. I look after it every day. And I named it, I called it Mary's Walk, after Mary. Now, in Mary's Walk, I buried a time capsule 3 meters down with the whole story of what happens at that site. The site there where the shelter was one of 2 sites that received very, very bad casualties. And the other site what was hit badly, shelter, was a one in Oldfield Park outside the Scala in 3rd Avenue. There, 16 people were killed, mostly police officers, because there was a police post directly by the shelter. But Roseby Road suffered the worst casualty in a shelter. Bath, after the 3rd raid, Bath had suffered more casualties than any other part of the West Country in 1942. We were almost on the same par as Coventry. We lost, the population of Bath was about 70,000 people. So we lost a lot of people. This is the cream. I say this most sincerely because this is actually the logs of Willie Schludecker, his logs for bombing Bath. Prior to bombing Bath, Exeter was hit 2 days on 2 nights, the 23rd and 24th of April, Exeter copped it. Again, Willie Schludecker flew it. This is Willie Schludecker's actual logs. You got there. That's Exeter. Well, first of all, that's Southampton twice, Grimsby, Exeter, then we come to Bath. This is Bath. Bath. That 3rd one, he actually had to abort because he had engine trouble. So he dropped his bombs on Portland Harbour in Weymouth before returning over back to the Channel again. That is a time he was actually in the air. So on the 1st raid, he was in the air for 167 minutes. That seemed a long time, but remember, it's only 38 minutes away from the airfield in occupied France. The next raid, this is where my family were killed, 179 minutes he was in the air. On the 3rd raid, which had to abort, it was 131. So their 3 raids was Willie Schludecker. Now they always approached from Shamcastle. So they came from the east. They flew in a direction of straight across Bath into the basin. And on the 1st raid, there were some 86 aircraft. Remember, they were all on their own. They were forbidden to make any communication with occupied France. They could talk to the crew on the intercom in the plane. They could not talk to another plane. They were on their own. When they dropped their bombs, they discharged their bombs. That was the only time that the German Luftwaffe pilot could actually Morse code occupy France and say he's dropped his bombs on target. When they dropped their bombs, it wasn't over. Because they flew in the direction, they were looking for targets of opportunity. And they went for every church they could find, as I said before. They were going for churches on the 1st raid. The 2nd raid, they didn't bother with any more churches. They were going after occupied or vastly occupied civilian places, White Way, Oldfield Park, Twerton, all them sort of places. They knew more than we thought. They knew literally every single street in Bath. And they flew so low that it's claimed that you could actually see the pilot out the window. I'll give you an idea of how low they actually flew in Bath. They came down Pierpoint Street towards the railway station, just above the house of the roof. They were below the church steeple, which is in Manvers Street. machine gunning the railway station. Next time you stand outside a Bath Spa railway station, look at the booking office and look to the right-hand side on the outside, and you will find it peppered with machine gun bullet holes. As I told you in the beginning, they were quite rookies. Some of them were very, very young. Willie Schludecker was 22. They actually then came down there so low, machine gunning, that they had to pull back so hard to get up over Beecham Cliff, otherwise they would have collided with Beecham Cliff. Each plane was told to look for targets of opportunity. The information was given, I told you earlier on about the German spy, claims that Sir Winston Churchill was staying in the Empire Hotel. This wasn't true. Willie Schludecker was given information about this, and they all knew where it was. Luckily, it never got hit. Place that got hit very close was they got very close because they got into the recreation ground. They got into Henry Street, and they got into where Marks and Spencer are now. On that particular area where Marks and Spencer's, there was a family called the Rattrays. They were all like, I think the oldest was on there, Rose was about 13. They were like doorsteps. They were right down to baby. Every single one of them, including mum and dad, were killed on a direct hit on the house where Marks and Spencer's in Goods Inward Yard is now, by Orchard Street. Every time I go down there, I think of the Rattrays. Every single one. The second raid, as I told you, that they were told to go for more targets of opportunity. But what they did do, which was a little bit nasty, is Willie Schludecker completely denied ever doing this. And personally, I do not believe him. He's, God rest his soul, he's dead and gone. He said he never, ever machine gunned civilians in the street. But they were told to destroy or try to shoot people in the street. People who were trying to rescue the injured and dead. They even, on 3 occasions, machine gunned ambulances going up Wellsway to St Martin's Hospital with casualties in them. And that alone is a breach of the Geneva Convention. You should not shoot an ambulance. And when ambulances arrived at St Martin's, lots of them were riddled in bullet holes. So the second raid was going to be for civilians. And they went for the densely populated areas, as I say, Oldfield Park, Twerton. At least one in maybe 7 to 10 bombs they dropped did not explode. There are stories about where these bombs are. I've got my own, after 55 years, I've got my own theories of where they are, and I know where they are. I don't want to tell nobody, I don't want to start no panic, but I do know where some of these bombs are. One particular bomb, Ju-88, was going for the Hollow in Twerton, Whiteway. And a friend of mine, he's dead and gone now, he was a 16-year-old, what they call home guard, peddling on a bike, taking messages around. And he couldn't find his boots. He had to go on duty, he couldn't find his boots. He eventually found his boots, went outside, and this Ju-88 come across very, very low over Whiteway, and it dropped its bombs. He dived to the ground expecting an explosion. There was no explosion. There was just 2 thud, thud. That was it. I'm saying no more. Anyway, Go on to the next one. See what's down there. Then we got more detail of the raids. There they are there. 3 raids there. This one here is when he dropped his bombs in Portland on the harbour because he had to get rid of it, offload his bombs. And then after that, he went to bomb Norwich. There's Exeter again, Exeter, 3 times Exeter, then Bath. Willie Schludecker was a very, very canny chap. I met him when he was 87 years old. He couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak German. So we had to go through an interpreter. The German embassy in Berlin contacted me originally, and they said, would you allow a German Luftwaffe pilot from KG2, because the KG2 was the actual, the group that he was flying KG2, to come over to Bath and make an apology. Is his dying wish, could he allow him to make an apology? And I thought about it for quite a while. I thought, what will my mum say? Because she was passed away. I said, what will my mum say? And after a while, I spoke to my wife, Pat. We had a detailed talk about it. I could have refused and he would have stayed there. And I thought, well, it's not just my family, it's everybody else. So I think I should allow him to come over. So arrangements were made for him to come over and make this apology. We had the apology actually on the table there, what you read out. When he made his apology for bombing Bath in the Memorial Gardens in 3rd Avenue, there was huge, great, what they call a disc, TV disc, what sends the messages all over the world. When he made his apology, it went to a potential viewing capacity of 100 million people in 52 countries. 10 million people watched it live in Moscow and Russia. And the Russians hated the Luftwaffe. They hated Willie. Willie wanted to actually take his plane over there or go over with the plane and land in Russia. And I said, I don't think you should do that, Willie, because they don't like you at all. Willie Schludecker flew 120 missions. As I said before, the life expectancy of a Luftwaffe pilot crew was 7 missions. About the same as what maybe the Royal Air Force would say for Lancaster crew. I think Lancaster crew was about 9 missions, but he went 120 missions. He crashed 9 times. He got shot up and crashed 9 times, but luckily he always managed to get back over the channel and crash in occupied France. So he was not home, but he was safe over the channel. Of all the sorties flown in Bath, 9 aircraft failed to go back, get back. And I got it here somewhere, there's approximately 12 raiders were shot down and 20 crew were killed. So, and there, if you go to Haycombe Cemetery, there is the graves of several Luftwaffe pilots in Haycombe Cemetery with our own service people. They got a little patch of their own, and there's about 9 buried in Haycombe Cemetery. Most pilots that were shot were taken to Canard's grave, which is a place where they would just bury German military. Now, he crashed 9 times, Willie Schludecker, and he was a very, very clever bloke. And Willie Schludecker said to me, through the interpreter, he said, for allowing me to actually come over and make my apology, he said, I'm going to make arrangements to take you up in my plane. I'm going to fly you over the city of Bath so you can see what it looked like when I bombed Bath. And I said, no, you're right, Willie. Remember, he crashed 9 times. So anyway, true to his word, he came over with his as a co-pilot in a Mooney T-20, which was a single-engine aircraft, five or six seats in it. And arrangements was made for him to land in a private airfield on the 420 near Marshfield, up on the 420. I went up there. I said to my wife, I said, dear Pat, I said, if you stand in the field in Coombe Down where I live, and you, Lucy, my daughter-in-law, you get a big sheet and you hold it up because we're going to fly over Coombe Down. She went, great, I'll be there. The plane landed. Well, he got out, put his arms around me, couldn't speak a word of English. All he would say is, wunderbar, wunderbar, wunderbar. I got in the plane. I had a camcorder with me, and I was filming the takeoff. And in the meantime, there was a film crew filming me, filming the takeoff. So he strapped me in the plane, and we went thundering down this grass runway. And I thought, this don't seem right, because I could hear this, a buzzing noise saying abort, abort, abort. But he didn't, the pilot. He kept on going. In front of us, there was Marshfield Junior School, directly in front of us. We started to gain altitude, and the plane come crashing down. I'd never been in a plane in my life, mind. And it hit the ground and broke the back of the plane. The tail part broke off. It then started flying again, and it started to climb. And as it climbed, the propeller stopped, and it dived straight down into the ground. I'd never flown before. I'm still filming it. Anybody who wants to see that crash, it is actually on film. If you want to spare, not a laugh, but to see exactly what happened that day, if you Google the 9 lives of Willie Schludecker, towards the end, you will see the crash. We crashed, as I say. I broke 2 ribs. I walked away, but we crashed. Nobody else was hurt. And he said, I'll come back and take you again. I said, no, you're all right, Willie. And all he kept on saying was, wunderbar, wunderbar, wonderful. A couple of months after, the phone rang from Germany. Chris, we are coming over to take you up in the plane. You blooming well ain't. They came across then for the 3rd time, and they landed in Thruxton on the 303. And true to their word, they took me up in the plane and flew over Bath, and we successfully landed again. When I looked at the runway in Thruxton, which is a proper military runway, it stretched for miles. I thought, well, if he can't get off here, he'll never get off. So that was that. This is all the children that were killed. All them children were killed. You can see there's the rat tray. There. There's my sister there, Mary. All them were killed in the shelter there. 2 children there. The 4 children, anybody who knows New King Street, the Ford family were killed in New King Street, and the Ford family lived opposite what is now Percy Boys Club, I believe. It was at one time a church. The church got hit. And also the bomb landed in right outside of the Ford family, and they were killed. These little children here, them, we got 12, 10, and 6. Something a bit special about them little family. In 1940, they were evacuated out of the east end of London for their own safety, and they were put in a house on the corner of the High Street in Twerton and Shophouse Road on the corner. A plane came over in 1941. It had one bomb on board. It had seen the railway line, so it decided to try and drop the bomb on the railway line in Twerton. They missed the railway line and killed the Randall children. Remember, they came for safety and they were killed in Bath. But when they're 4 months old, this is all the children, every single one. And every time I do a service, and I've done lots of services, I always try to make an effort to read out every single one of them names. Tonight I can't do it because obviously time does not permit that. The arrow points at Willie Schludecker. There he is. It's Willie Schludecker there. This is his crew. And after they bombed Bath, they were so chuffed about what they'd done. They put the bomb in Bath on a magazine, because they had their own magazine, Luftwaffe, and they started, we destroyed the city of Bath. So that's Willie with his crew. He kept the whole crew, and they all survived the war. Right. Right, go back that way. Right. This picture shows, does anybody know where Victoria Road is? It's coming above Brome Hayes. Before you get to the railway arch at the top of Brome Hayes, you turn right, that's Victoria Road. Every single street or every single building there was destroyed. But remarkably, the surface air raid shelter survived. That's one shelter there, one shelter. It's very much like the ones that were in Rosebery Road. They're really well built. The shelters they have is they've got a door at one end, a door at the other end, and they've got a gap between them for blast. Because when a bomb actually drops, the actual concussion from the bomb can kill you at probably 300 yards. It's not so much the blast, it's the actual concussion that kills you. So you could be a couple of 100 yards away from a bomb, it could still kill you. And the secret was always told. If the bomb dropped, you heard it go off. Sadly, if you had your mouth open at the time, you more likely would be dead. If you kept your mouth shut, you might survive. And the reason why, if you had your mouth open, the actual blast and the concussion will go into your mouth, down into your stomach, and pull your intestines out, back out through your mouth again. So the secret is, keep your mouth shut. So that is obviously people looking for survivors and that. I have every single reason to believe now that that there is a responsibility of Willie Schludecker. How on earth could I know that? It wasn't there. It was simple. I questioned Willie Schludecker with great detail. He was informed on the second raid to go for railway lines. And we all know that the railway line runs directly this side of Victoria Road through Oldfield Park, the Great Western. And talking through the interpreter and showing him the pictures of Bath, he can pretty well vaguely remember going for the railway lines in that particular area. When he dropped the bombs for the railway station or the Great Western Railway in Oldfield Park, one of his crew said, "You haven't hit the railway line, sir. You've hit some houses." I am convinced that is responsible. And when I showed Willie Baedeker these pictures, obviously a long, long time ago, but this chap had every single faculty, believe me. Was the next slide. New King Street. This is where the Ford family lived there. This is a bomb crater, 500 kilogram. The blast from that bomb destroyed that there. So it's all down to blast. That's the crater. The Percy Boys Club would have been over here somewhere, which is now, but there was a church here. But that area there is the crater. So the blast did all that. It killed all the Ford family. These Home Guard are looking after it because they were always there responsible for looking after it. Because as I said before in the beginning, there was considerable looting that went on in Bath. And what they would do is people would try to steal money out the gas meters and electric meters, sixpences and the pennies, whatever it cost in them days. Wicked to say, but it happened. Now we're very, very close to home, Queen Square. This is Queen Square outside where we are now. They are building air raid shelters and blast trenches. That's still there. That's obviously the thing in the middle of we call it. But that is the area there that was actually requisitioned for an air raid shelter. This bloke ain't doing much. Right. That there is the recreation ground in Bath. Look, it says visitors. That had a hit by a 500 kilogram. The blast from that bomb obviously blew, that's Johnson Street, blew the windows out there, windows there. But that blast is the one that damaged the Bath Abbey. The blast actually went across what would be Orange Grove, and it knocked out several windows in the east side of the Bath Abbey. No structural damage, but the windows. So that's there. They actually knew, they knew the history of Bath. Luckily, thank God they never hit the Abbey or they never hit the Roman baths. But they knew of places. They knew the Royal Crescent, obviously. That was, if they could have hit that, that would have been prime. They hit the Royal Crescent on one occasion with an incendiary. It went through the roof and it burnt out, I think it was number 7, the Royal Crescent. Further along the road, they had the, what's it called? The circus. They went for the circus, but they missed the circus and they hit the Regina Hotel on the corner, I believe it's Bennett Street. And that was full of lots of visitors who come to look around Bath. And there was very, very few survivors in there. They also hit the assembly rooms. Now, the assembly rooms wasn't actually bombed, it was incendiary. It burns out through incendiary devices, like the 1 kilogram incendiaries. Now and then, recognize that. That's King Edward Road in Oldfield Park. That is it when I took it now in 2005. That's obviously when it got hit, both sides of the road. Again, they were going for densely populated areas. They weren't interested in industry, even though Stoddard and Pitts did get hit. Because at the time, Stoddard and Pitts were making 2-man submarines, and they were making tank turrets for tanks, but they weren't after that. Against civilians. It was a terrorist attack. Willie's signed apology. That apology, when I had that apology come through probably about a week before he came over. Unbeknown to me, the national newspapers got the story. And they said to me, they said, could we have the apology? I said, no. They said, I've given my word to Willy Schludecker and the German embassy that nobody will see this apology until it's read out on that specific day, the 20th of April, 2009, in the Memorial Gardens. They said, we will give you £15,000 for the apology. I said, no. They said, our pockets are very, very deep. We can go a lot more than that. I said, you can talk as much as you want. I'm not letting you have the apology. True to my word, I never let that apology. Had I given the apology to them, I would have put the money into a local charity, obviously. But I give him my word, and my word was my bond. Well, that is the apology. And go through it, which is there. It's down there somewhere. Yeah, there is there. Yeah, yeah. That's the other side of the apology, signed by him, 25th of the 4th, 2009. For and on behalf of Mr. Christopher Kilminster, Bath organizer and citizen of the city of Bath, he signed it. What was that? There's Willy Schludecker with me. He miserable looking. Good old Willy. Billy, take me up in your aircraft. That was taken outside of the damage at the old Labour Exchange in James Street West. All that damage in James Street West was caused by one bomb that landed about 18 feet away from the main entrance. It took the top of the Labour Exchange clean off, and all that shrapnel damage was caused by one bomb. And if you could imagine looking at that piece of shrapnel or that bomb there, what damage it would do. Right, this is my back garden, and I have this shrine to the people who lost their lives in Bath, in general, and Rosebery Road. There's the part of the bomb, which we've got here. All this was actually found under the buildings. That tile there come from my mum's scullery in number 16 Rosebery Road. During the excavations, we actually dug up a bottle of Thatcher's war grade cider, which is now 82 years old. It's sat in my house. I've tried it. It tastes like engine oil. It smells like cider. It's got to be one of the oldest bottles of cider in the complete West Country. Thatcher said to me, they said, the bloke who made that is now dead. It was buried in the ground for nearly 82 years. And Joe, bless his heart, came to my house when he asked me to do this talk. And I said to Joe, I said, I tell you what, Joe, I'll try some. Joe tried to leg it out my front door. I put a bit in a glass and I tasted it. And I can tell you now, it tasted like engine oil, but it smelled like cider. There's me. Joe said, this is one for the ladies. We won't talk about that one. Unveiling of the stone. The memorial stone I arranged to have put in Mary's Walk in Rosebery Road in Twerton. This area now is called Mary's Walk. There's a time capsule buried around about that area, 3 meters down. That's the actual stone. Now that stone cost £15,000. It was actually paid for by the developers and Legal in General. The weight of that stone, to remember the Blitz victims, weighs, with the base, weighs nearly 4 tons. It was shipped from India. It took nearly 5 months on a cargo ship to get over to England, as a raw stone. It was then polished, and we had it engraved with all the names of the people that died in that shelter there. And also on the front to remember all the people who lost their lives in the Bath Blitz. The people there, they come from the Bishop of Bath and Wells, sent holy water up to consecrate the ground. The ground is now registered as a war memorial site. So I look after the garden. I designed the garden. I did all that because when they first designed the garden, it was rubbish. And they said, "You can't change it." I said, "No." He said, no, you can't change plans. You can't change the garden. So when it all cleared off, I redesigned it again and I made it better. Anybody who wants to go and see it, you're welcome to go and see it. It's in Rosebery Road, Twerton. That's opposite Bellets Road near Windsor Bridge. That basically concludes what I've got to say. I'll just go through and make sure we got anything else to go. You can see from where I'm standing that my head is full of information. I've tried so hard this evening to get it across to you, ladies and gentlemen. I have a saying. Every service, I always say the same thing. In wars, there are no victors, only victims. I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
And I didn't try to run away, Joe.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was a very sad but very interesting talk. Has anybody got any questions for Chris?
I wasn't born until 1947.
Yeah. Just hold it to your chin so people can hear you.
I wasn't born until 1947.
The question was how old he was.
Yeah, I wasn't born until 1947.
My name's Malcolm Mitchell. I'm a survivor of the Blitz. I was born on March the 30th, 1942. 1 month later, Hitler decided to bomb Bath. I was the youngest of 6 children. My father happened to be on leave that weekend, and he was stood in the yard at the back of our house, and he seen the bombs falling before the sirens even sounded. He didn't take us to the Kilminster Square bomb shelter. He took us into our cottage, which was a little 2 up, 2 down, and the 8 of us huddled in the coal house for the 2 raids, and we survived. I'm very proud of that point. The following day, my grandparents came from Willsbridge and took us to Willsbridge, so we missed the 3rd raid. So thanks to my father being home, we all survived. When I was, I'm 82 now, and I decided a few years ago to write a story about my life, to give my children and let them know what I've done in my life. I've been in Bath for 82 years, so I wrote to my older siblings, and my oldest sister wrote back to me, and she can sort of like vouch that Dad was in the yard and that, and what happened that night, and you know, we survived.
You were lucky to survive.
I know, very, very lucky.
One thing I would say, I forgot to mention, is when the first raid started, 11 aircraft failed to find the target. They missed Bath. They never followed the beam properly, and they ended up bombing East Bristol, Eastville, that sort of area. And what the RAF did, they had a system called, or the defense had a system called Meakin, which would, they would send a very, very powerful signal up into the atmosphere, and it would cause the Luftwaffe pilots to lose the beam, so they couldn't find the target. And they did have two decoy places. A decoy starlet is an area which is designed to be used in the event of a raid. They would set fire to haystacks, and the Luftwaffe would follow and would think it was the target and bomb places like fields. And one particular area is Hinton Charterhouse. Thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
I now every year go up to the memorial in the sort of park and I place a bouquet on the 25th of April. And I'm the only person in this city who does that. The council do nothing. They don't celebrate it anymore. I went to the 50th anniversary of the Blitz in the Bath Abbey, and I was lucky enough to sit next to two young people who told me that they were the children of the vicar from St. Swithin's Walker, who was in the Regina and got killed that night. And the children had stayed at home. And so it was quite interesting. And it's rather a shame that this city no longer respects the 417 victims who made the ultimate sacrifice on that weekend, and they do nothing to remember it.
When the Regina was hit, right, another bomb landed in the center of Queen Square. When they tried to demolish it several days after, it exploded and killed all the people who were trying to defuse it. There's still a crater in Queen Square now. Anybody else with any more questions?
Yeah, how soon after the bombing did word get out, or was there a press blackout?
Sorry, say again.
How soon after the end of the bombings did the word get out about how badly Bath had been bombed, or was there a press blackout?
I can't say what you're saying. Sorry. You're a bit close to the mic.
Press blackout of any information about how badly
Yeah.
Bath had been bombed. If so, how long did that go on for?
Well, initially, when Bath was bombed, it was bombed along with Canterbury, York, Exeter. What happened is they made the Luftwaffe made a big thing of it because they just wanted to make a big thing of it, full stop. Lots of things were kept secret, obviously, but in that case, they were making a big thing of it with Willy Schludecker. Because Willy Schludecker got 2 Iron Crosses from Hitler. He was one of the only ones that met Hitler. And Hitler said to Willy Schludecker, "Have you anything to say, Willy?" He said to Hitler, "I'm going to have to learn English." And Hitler said, "Don't worry, Willy, because everybody's going to be speaking German."
Willie, I got a couple from online. Chris, sorry. What will happen to Willie's apology in the future?
Sorry, what was that?
What will happen to Willie's apology in the future?
The Imperial War Museum in London have got an interest in Willie's flight logs and the apology. The gardens, when I pass away, because I'm not in particularly good health now, when I pass away, my son has made an oath that he will look after Mary's Walk for me. So basically, the stuff in my garden will stay there. The Willie's flight logs, and they go on. What you see as Bath is just a tip of the iceberg, because he was bombing places like the Isle of Wight, Cowes, radar stations all over. So we're talking about Bath, so we haven't involved any other cities at all. But Willy Schludecker got around a lot, and he was lucky to survive. So all the stuff basically will probably go to the Imperial War Museum in London.
And a final question from online, Chris. Was there an air raid shelter in Sydney Gardens? And do you have any photographs?
I would probably say no, I don't think there was. Well, there was or there wasn't. No, I didn't think there was. People say to me, was my street bombed? And I can usually say yes or no, but obviously I don't know everything, but I try my best.
Wasn't there any air cover from Cullen then?
Very, very good question. The answer is no. What happened was, Cullen was mosquitoes, the wooden aircraft mosquitoes, 2-man. Charmy-Down was being used to train Polish and other countries' pilots. The Polish were pulling on the leash to take off to help destroy the planes over Bath, but they were forbidden to take off because they had not enough experience. So basically, they didn't. Of the 12-hour aircraft that failed to get back to France, they were shot down by anti-aircraft fire on Flatholm in the Bristol Channel, near West-Supermare, and Akak all the way down, and also the Beaufighters were up looking for them, and they were coming from places like Warnwell, Exeter. So basically, Bath was on its own, no help.
Thank you very much then, Chris. I think we'll close it there then. Thanks for a very fascinating talk. And if you could all put your hands together to thank Chris for that talk. Thank you.